We will call the June 4th Conservation and Greenbelt Advisory Commission meeting to order. If you can, please rise for the invocation and the pledge. Gracious God, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for this group. Lord, we pray for wisdom as we continue to talk about ways we can use our social, moral, intellectual, and relational capital to preserve the incredible resources that you have made and blessed Dorchester County with. Help us to be good and wise stewards of those resources, and help us to work earnestly to serve the public with this project. Lord, we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Smith, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. It's great to see you.
Thanks for that.
Yes, sir. The minutes from our May 7th meeting were distributed ahead of time by staff. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
All right, and there's a second. Any corrections to those minutes? All right, hearing no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, ayes have it. Minutes are approved. Today, we modified our agenda slightly from what we originally planned. Mr. Utze was able to conclude conversations with Low Country Land Trust to get that project back to County Council, which we weren't going to vote on it at any rate, but there's no need for us to discuss that track any further. But there are some opportunities coming for some strategic conservation priorities and conversations in the county. And we'll open the floor for conversation on those. And just to start, I think there might be a upcoming project. Kira, would you like to share anything?
Yeah, I was made aware, I haven't had any discussions with property owners, but others have, that there is property owners with substantial holdings of land up near St. George Airport along Indian Field Swamp that are looking to see what they want to do with their property in the future, and I think would be open to the potential for conservation. I think the total acreage might be like 1,600 acres. I mean, it's a substantial piece of property. So I haven't looked to see how it might fit within our priority areas on the Greenbelt Master Plan, but think it might be worth, if nothing else, maybe putting the Low Country Land Trust or somebody else in touch with them about potential for protecting that property.
Absolutely. Do you know if it's immediately adjacent to Indian Field Swamp?
I think Indian Field Swamp runs through it.
Oh, okay. Wow. That would be great. I know one of our priorities has been trying to geographically diversify our projects so that we're getting more projects from the St. George area and from the northern and western side of the county. So that would be really exciting to see a project of that scale come through. Is there anything that the commission can do to encourage or to support those conversations as they're unfolding?
I will certainly let you all know if I think it would be beneficial. Yeah, I think the property owners are just trying to figure out perhaps the best way to be good stewards of their property in the future. So I don't know if it would just be a conversation with them and the land trust, or if maybe we'd even invite them to a Conservation Greenbelt meeting to get to understand what it is that we all do and have further conversations with them. So, but I'll certainly let you all know of opportunities to be involved with it.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know we'll be back here for this is June, so we'll be back up here in August. If not, before then, to have them at the August meeting just to hear from them, hear their thoughts and what they're hoping to accomplish, and maybe we can talk about ways that conservation could help.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Awesome.
So did they approach the office about information on applying?
No, they haven't approached us. I've been told by others who have been in touch with them that they are trying to figure out what to do, and that they would be open, I think, to this.
Yeah. That's a good point, though. I think one of the things that I've been interested about as we've started vetting more of these proposals is how we're effectively communicating about the Greenbelt funds to the public and how we can improve communication on that so that, as families are having these conversations, they know that the Greenbelt is a potential resource or partnership to have those conversations. So I think as we can figure out more of how people are learning about the Greenbelt as a resource, I think that would be helpful educational tools for us to have to know what communication channels are working most effectively.
Yeah, absolutely.
How have the past applicants submitted the application? Did they were aware of the program, or?
So in the past, applicants have come through land trust organizations such as Open Space Institute and Low Country Land Trust. Usually, they either reach out to the land trust organizations directly, or the land trust organizations will reach out to them and work with them. They are a great resource for that because they tend to work closely with landowners.
So we're still new, so they don't probably reach out to us first. But it's good that they reach out to the land trust first.
We have had a couple landowners come to us directly, but they have not applied yet. We encourage them to work with land trust organizations because they know how this works really well. And it tends to be that I think they tend to be able to find other sources of grants as well, so that they're able to match the funds, which is something that we encourage.
Now, in addition to Open Space Institute and Low Country Land Trust, Nature Conservancy also works with conservation easements and projects. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have we had any direct, I just have noticed that Nature Conservancy has not brought a project forward. Have we had any direct communication with them since the Greenbelt project has gotten off the ground?
So we have not had direct communication with the Nature Conservancy, but we are a member of the South Carolina Land Trust Network. We go to their biannual meetings, and they are a member of that network as well.
Okay. I believe the closest Nature Conservancy office is going to be the Charleston one, I think. So it might be worth just having a conversation or inviting them to come to a meeting. Maybe one in Somerville, since that would be closer to them, but figuring out ways we can engage their team and learn more about what some of their Dorchester County conservation priorities are and how we could potentially work with them on that. One other thing that I wanted to talk about on some of the strategic conservation priorities, this came up with the recent night track that was preserved, was the opportunity to finish connectivity between Brosnan and Audubon. And we're down to, now that night is preserved, we're down to 4 properties that we would need to get under easement or under protection in order to complete that connectivity. And really, I mean, any way you look at it, there's a tremendous opportunity with all 4 of those for more waterway protections and the like. So I know that there's a potential Low Country Land Trust partnership with at least one of those properties. But particularly the other 3, I just wanted to kind of survey the group on any connections that y'all might have with some of those landowners or anything proactively that we can be doing to reach out and say, hey, we're as close as we've ever been to that complete connection. What can we do to get them at the table?
I know that we have a connection with Austin Construction, which is one of the land holdings, but I know David Ray was going to reach out to Jimmy Austin himself to kind of start the conversation there. So I'll try to reach out to David Ray with the Land Trust and kind of see if he's made any headway on talking to them. They would be, I think, our next land holding, starting from the Brosnan end going towards Beidler.
Okay.
And they have to do a certain amount of reclamation and everything, being a mine area anyways, so their mind is already going to be geared towards what they have to do conservation-wise. So I'll reach out to David Ray and see if he made any contact with them.
Thank you. That would be great.
Let me, I can add a step to that. Jimmy was in my backyard just 2 days ago, and we were talking about that same thing. And he has 15 acres of the wetlands that he's absolutely willing to put under conservation easement. his only concern, and this is where probably David Ray would need to, I guess, officiate some restrictions or maybe relieve some restrictions, is he's counting on being able to have his ponds, overflow into that area. And he's afraid that if he puts it under restriction, he may be restricted from egressing water through that area. He says, otherwise, I'll turn it over right now to you, 15 acres. But that 15 acres, the way I see it, would really serve to connect that one track, even if we didn't get any more.
Yeah. Do you know which 15 acres that is? Do you know which piece of property?
Yes, I looked at it briefly. It's the not Timothy Creek, Walnut Branch.
Walnut Branch, yeah.
Yeah, Walnut Branch that he's talking about.
Okay.
So it's the
Is that-
outlining border
Yes,
of
it's that
his.
lowland branch
Is
that,
it that one? Okay. And then Austin would be the second piece, right? beside it?
that's the Austin construction.
Okay.
Those pieces right there.
Nice.
and he may very well, put the ponds in also when he, completes his sand mining of them.
With
But,
that, because this is where my technical expertise breaks down a little bit, because I'm not an expert in the conservation easements, that could be a permissible use potentially for conservation easements, because all you're doing is you're giving up the potential development value of the land.
Right, we see a lot of conservation easements that still allow for agricultural industries, ag, forestry, and mining operations.
Okay.
Yes, that was my feeling. I told him I couldn't see where that would be a restriction that much, but,
Right.
so, I think
So he
that
might
would
be
be a
willing,
great next step.
Yeah. Sounds like maybe, again, a conversation with David
Even
might
though
help assuage some of those questions.
On what Edsel's conversation was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually looked at another pretty sizable tract, close to 300 acres, up between St. George and Harleyville, the Henderson tract. I mentioned it to you. I don't know whether, did Kim Henderson make any contact with either one of you? It's land right off the 7 Mile Road, on the frontage, close to the frontage road, almost to 95. And it's adjacent to Four Hole Swamp, which I like. It has several ponds on it that were dug for dirt for Interstate 26, when it was being constructed. And it's also part of Audubon. It joins Audubon.
Okay.
So, to me, Audubon would probably pitch in and offset some of the expense. And as I said, it's between 275 and 300 acres.
That's great.
I'm not sure that they have complete title to it yet. It belongs to now, I think, still in the name of Joe Westbury. But apparently they've been promised the land, and she uses the, she uses the land now and wants it to always be available for animals, especially, rescue animals.
Okay.
And she, I think it might be the keeper of the wild or something
Ah, yes.
that she's involved with.
Wildlife rehab, yeah.
And she has several release pens where she will, aid animals, whether it's a possum, squirrel, whatever wild animal it is, back to health. and then allow it to release itself, through the process. She seems real dedicated to what she's doing, and
Has she approached
great.
Audubon or?
no, she hasn't. She called me, and I went up and met with her and her husband. We rode around, talked about it. I answered every question they had, and it was just a matter of the application process. I assumed at that time that she had clear title to the land, but in looking into it, trying to get a copy of it, everything I saw, it was under Joe Westbury. When I called her about it, she said they had not transferred it yet, that was to be. I said, well, that would probably be the next step you need to go through, is having a transfer, good clear title, and then we could proceed from there. I also mentioned it to David Ray. He was certainly interested in it too.
And we're keeping Mr. Ray pretty busy.
Yeah, we are.
That's good.
And he's a busy guy on top of everything else.
No,
What's
that's
her
great.
relationship to the landowner?
His or mine?
No, the young lady that you talked about that has the rescue on the land. What's her relationship?
Oh, she will own the land.
She's in the
She
process of
will.
acquiring it?
It's
Is that?
her,
yeah.
her father apparently is Joe Westbury. I know her uncle is Ernest Westbury. So she treats it as her own now, but I think she's been promised it,
Just
but
not-
does not have title to it yet.
Yeah. I know that the county website is a treasure trove of resources and information. Do we have any like rack cards or something that talk specifically about the Greenbelt project that commission members could have, so that, as we're having conversations, we would have something tangible that we could leave behind that would, because they ultimately need to get connected, either with you all or with one of the land trust partners, something that would help them kind of take that next step and know kind of how to follow up?
Yeah, so on our website, there is an FAQs kind of section. It is a PDF that you can kind of have saved, and it has a lot of questions like, what is the Greenbelt program? How do you apply? It answers just a lot of basic questions. If there's any questions you think that we can add to that, please let me know, and I can do that for you guys. But it should be great kind of resource for you guys to have.
Okay. Or, we could print out, a page of that and have that as we're going about in the community, having those conversations. But yeah, if there's anything from a print standpoint that we could develop that would be a quick leave behind piece that would have some specific next steps that people could take, that might be good to have.
To go along with that, is it possible to put together like a flyer or anything with a QR code or something to have at the libraries?
Yeah.
Like the St. George Library, Bacon's Bridge Library, or
Yeah, I can
Old
definitely
Trolley,
do
I
that,
should
yeah.
say. Just because that would be a good place for a lot of people to potentially see and be like, hey, what's this? I want to learn more about it, and scan into
to the
it real
website,
quick.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
If you guys also,
Daniel,
sorry.
you probably have a better feel for this, at least than I do, but as we're out and trying to pursue in properties that would be good for our Greenbelt program, is there any real use to try to find properties that are not going to be available to the public? I mean,
So that's
I know
a
that's a
good,
little bit of a sensitive issue, but
that's a good question. And I think, my answer might be different than, than the answer you might get if you talk to somebody else. I would argue that there is public value to preserving the ecology of land in Dorchester County, regardless of whether or not the public can set foot on it. The public wants to be able to breathe clean air, to drink fresh water, to enjoy wildlife that relies on habitat. There are very tangible, even quantifiable benefits to the public
Absolutely.
to preserving that space, even if people can't set foot on it. I do think that there is a concern at the council level. It's been voiced multiple times in the last couple of projects that have come forward. Because these are public dollars, it's easier to justify when there is public access. Even if it's passive, like Rosebrook Park and several of our projects that we've recommended, where it would just be like nature trails or things like of that nature. So I think that's something we need to talk about, because I think we need more consensus. I think we need more clarity. I would even invite Councilman Smith to weigh in, not speaking on behalf of council as a whole, but just your own personal thoughts on that specific question, just to kind of help us as we look for projects.
Well, I go back to our mission statement. It just doesn't state that specifically, and we have set some proposals to council that had public access.
Sure. Yeah.
I just know on the behalf of the council, for example, like, was it the use and track?
Yes. Yes.
One of the big things with that, the reason why they denied is because there wasn't nothing offered to the public. So, that public aspect for the council right now is pretty important.
Yeah.
And the reason being that the amount of money that they have to spend at the present moment, I mean, they're worried about running out of money. I know it's about, help me, it's about $35 million.
Total, yes, that's how much it
Yeah,
was.
and that'll go pretty quick when you do the land, so. And we kind of working our way into this, so, yeah.
Right.
Anything dealing with the public, with that.
Right, that makes it an easier sell. Yeah, I think with, if the changes that Mr. Yutzi and the Land Trust are bringing back to council, if those are approved, that would bring our total down to closer to $20 million that we would have left after, the projects that have been approved.
I would just add on to kind of echo what Daniel said. As a trained wildlife biologist, I think that there is significant citizen value to preserving both private and public or public access lands. All the things you mentioned being completely accurate. But I would also say that if we were to go down the path of almost blanket not approving lands because they don't have public access, then we need to make an edit to our master plan, because that is false advertisement to Dorchester County citizens applying for this funding, where it does not specify, and I believe it even mentions that it can be used on private land without public access. And I believe that that's false advertisement to our citizens if we're never going to, I won't say never, but if it is very difficult to get that approved. That's a lot of hoops for our citizens to have to jump through to apply for this conservation money, to just very likely not be approved at the end of the day. So if that's the path that the county wants to go down, I believe that that needs to be edited or drafted out or whatever it may be out of our documents, because it just feels like false advertisement otherwise.
Yeah.
And
What,
when we had
do
our
we-
public appreciation days, both in St. George and in Somerville for Dorchester County, there was several, 10, 12 bullet points that what did the public feel they wanted to see in the use of the money. And it was well understood that not every proposal that would forward to the county council would be public access lands.
Yeah.
We did discuss that.
They understood that,
But
yeah,
our
yeah.
consensus was just less developed land.
Right.
Right,
Whether it was
right.
public access.
That was the priority.
Yeah,
I'm here as a private citizen.
Yes, sir.
yes,
I'm just let you know what happened with that incident, but
yeah.
that would be something to readdress council to get a clear outline.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we want to be respectful of council's time. We don't want to bring things forward that are not going to meet muster. And then I think at the same time, we want to do our part as an advisory commission to help guide and advise council for opportunities that are most prudent and most wise uses for those dollars. So I think getting clarity there in the coming weeks and the coming months will be something important for us to pursue. Do we know I'm sorry, Edsel, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Go ahead, you finish.
Okay, well, I was going to ask a question related to that, but a question to staff. So if you had something to add.
I was
please.
just going to echo the fact that in addition to protecting wildlife, the environment itself, water quality in some tracts,
Yeah.
you know, it might not even be possible for public access if it's totally wetlands, riverbank, whatever, or something, but at least watersheds. I've got one watershed property that I'd love to see protected that I think could be public access granted too, but not all land is going to be really good for the public, but it's great for the environment and water quality and animals and developing those green belts where you have a nice corridor for animals and wildlife to move, you know, there. But there's one track and I'm attached to it, so, and I wish Phyllis were here so that I wouldn't feel like I'm kind of talking behind her back. I'm not, because she and I have had this conversation numerous times, and I'm not sure how close we are, but our Heritage Center property up on Highway 78, and Mr. Smith, I'd love to get you on that track, and I'd love to be able to show you, you know, what we're planning to do has nothing to do right now with our Greenbelt conservation, but it certainly has a lot to do with the county, and the county's well invested in that track already. But we have about 45, 50 acres there that's mostly wetlands that would make an ideal county park, I think, for, you know, walking trails, passive park. It would also protect that Timothy Creek watershed, which almost all of it's in the watershed. It needs to be protected. And the third point that I think would be of keen interest to us is the fact that 15 acres of it falls within Berkeley County, and Berkeley County
Can partner with them.
we
Yeah.
could partner with them, and I've talked to them briefly about it, and there is interest there. I don't know how collaboration could connect those two, but I think it would be possible, and I think it would be a great step, you know, to have properties that both counties would share Greenbelt money on
Yes,
there.
absolutely. That would be a great regional collaboration project that we could promote.
It
Yeah.
would, but it, you know, we'll have our Heritage Center, you know, there, and we're doing great right now fundraising. We're just about to reach our, you know, $8 million, you know, fundraising effort and plan to start construction this
Fantastic.
fall. And the next step would be how we're going to use the back portion of that property. And to me, to have a park there, providing trails and whatever campsites, maybe picnic areas, dog park, you know, it's beautiful for that. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So maybe after this meeting, you and I can talk calendar.
Oh, Miss Hughes is very persistent, very persistent.
I've been real anxious to meet you anyway.
But no, Edsel, I want to hone in actually on something that you mentioned there, which I think further underscores the need to kind of circle up with council to get some clarification, because you mentioned watershed preservation, which I agree is a huge component to how we think about these proposals. But I think even defining what we mean by that, because the UTC track presented kind of differing views where we felt, you know, it is in the the headwaters of Polk Swamp, yes, and has some waterways that drain into Polk Swamp. So really, the way I understand it, I'm not an ecologist or a scientist by any stretch of the imagination, but really to get to those more periphery edges of the watershed, that's where the best opportunity for watershed management really lies. And I remember very distinctly a councilman commenting that they felt that it was a stretch for that application to even imply that it was helping with watershed development because it wasn't immediately adjacent to some of those watershed bodies. So I think even what we mean when we say, we might mean one thing when we bring that forward, but I think council might hear things a little differently and have a more maybe black and white zoning maybe mindset for that. I don't know. I don't want to speak for anyone on council, but again, I think there's value to us in getting everyone together so that we can better understand, how we can use those terms correctly so that we're both speaking the same language and pursuing the same objectives there.
Well, in all respect to our council members, I know that they're trying to do best they can for, their constituents. And the average citizen out there probably thinks that, well, look, if my tax dollar is going to buy this land, then I need to be able to set foot on it.
Right, right.
I'm not sure they can make the connection of, it's not just their tax dollar, it's other tax dollars that's coming into it too, other sources that paying for it. And in the case with the usage tract, it really wasn't that much. It was some of the cheapest land we had.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it really was a bargain.
And I do want to note that was acknowledged with gratitude from
Right.
council that, hey, this is a great price, and particularly when Mr. Utsi brought even more down from his asking price, that was very favorably received.
Right.
So in the conversation.
It's probably hard for the average citizen to realize the value of that land to, conservation and
Yeah.
like we can.
Well, I think that's another opportunity for us as a commission to do more in public education and public awareness. One of our mandates, one of our roles in our ordinance, forget the specific text, but it mentions education specifically.
So that's what I was about to ask is, can we launch some sort of outreach education initiative, especially now that we're kind of 1 year after we did all the initial outreach? It can
Yeah.
be like an update, look at what we preserved, look what it looks like, here's the scope of what we're doing, and then come up with some sort of educational guidance that elaborates on why that stuff's important and why
Yeah.
continuing to do it is important. Because it can be like the 1 year kickoff of doing
Yeah.
it all in the
No.
first place.
I think that'd
One
be great.
thing we could do, Low Country Land Trust, they have a lot of training already on this and a lot of publicity on the benefit and et cetera. They may very well agree to offset the expense of doing a publication or putting something out on it. And I bet they probably already have a lot. I know they asked me to do a little video interview of property that I put under conservation, and they had it on their website. And I know they connected with a couple other people that did the same thing, that had donated conservation easements on theirs.
Well, they did a video for the berry track, right? So maybe something like that that's more of a summary of the whole year. If we could put together a little promo video.
Yeah.
It's like a summary of all of the lands that we've already set out to
Preserve, yeah.
preserve.
Sure.
Create like a little summary video and blast that out. Put it on Facebook, put it on all these
Your
links.
tax dollars at
Yep.
work.
Yeah, exactly.
Make sure to include Open Space Institute with the Beach Hill track
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. I like that. I know it's structured very differently in terms of its funding mechanism, but Greenville County has a trust that their county council has set up that does basically the same thing that we do. Their website is a phenomenal public relations tool. I mean, if you want to see how to visualize, how to communicate the impact that this commission, that these dollars have on conservation, I mean, theirs is a great example for that, funding mechanism aside.
I don't know if it's something that the county GIS crew can do, but I know that Esri has this platform called Storyboard, I believe is what it is. This would be a great use for Storyboard because it would really be able to link up pictures, videos, collaborations, everything else, and blast that out with all kinds of really wonderful graphics and things of that nature, and use that as a good tool to do education and updates all in one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Both of those are key.
Yeah, I mean, I think what would be the process if we wanted to do, let's start with 2 workshops, one in Somerville, one in St. George, where we're just doing kind of a 1-year reflection update, but then also some education on the value of conservation, regardless of public access. What are our parameters or restrictions that we should be aware of in putting that together?
Well, I think that it's really up to our availability. That's the first one. It's hard to get a large group of people together. But other than that, I know we've already been in contact with some people exploring these ideas. We have talked to Jennifer Howard, who is the executive director of the South Carolina Land Trust Network, and she's reached out to Clemson Extension, which offers a lot of resources. And we're hoping to do something maybe sometime this summer.
Great.
To talk about, ecosystem benefits, conservation easements, to answer some of these questions you guys maybe already have, like what exactly is allowed on, different conservation easements, so that we can make informed decisions, and then to inform the public about what we're doing.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit more about you guys' availability, and then we can try to schedule something.
Well, what if instead of like a workshop or whatever else, what if we started off with more of like a table at a third Thursday or Somerville Farmers Market or something that has high reach? Because we know that getting people to come out after work or whatever it might be to any of these workshops, that our engagement is often pretty limited. However, people are already attending things
Already
like
at some of
third
these different
Thursday
things.
or farmers markets, to where if we just had a table there and some of us were able to volunteer some time and maybe do multiple of them, like divide and conquer, and do a few different third Thursdays. That way it really gets the word out a little bit better, and we can have, maybe some posters created or whatever else to have, and really kind of just talk to people as they come by. Maybe start with that and see what kind of engagement we get, because it already exists, rather than us trying to get people to come to something new.
Yeah,
That's great.
only other, I like that. The only other thought that I would add to that is possibly utilizing the libraries. So if we went out to the new Ashley River Library, and they, all the libraries have a programming of all the events that they do at the libraries, and you could hold an event. They do have meeting space there, but then that also provides you the opportunity to tour property that has been preserved using Greenbelt funding, and tie the two together that way. So just an
Yeah.
additional idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. I also like, having a booth or something somewhere where commission members could take some of the logistical burden off of staff. If y'all can help us get the materials together, we can help man the table. And, that way y'all aren't working extra hours unless you just want to be at third Thursday anyways. Just want to be sensitive to that. I acknowledge the staff time. I know South Carolina Conservation Bank allows for projects that have no public access, but do you know to what extent they elevate or they emphasize that, or that's factored into their evaluation of proposals? Do we know?
I think it is a question, but I don't know how it weighs.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah. And then I know we had talked a while back, and I'm sure y'all have continued the conversations about a tri-county Greenbelt meeting of sorts. Is that still in conversation, or I was just curious where that stood? I know it was one of many ideas that we threw out a while back.
Yeah, we haven't really heard much about it recently, so I can definitely reach back
Okay.
out, see where we are with that.
Yeah. I think it'd be great to have regardless, and certainly if we have, potential properties that could tap into, multiple Greenbelt funds, that would be another reason to have. We could pose it as a question, let's get together and collaborate and communicate, but let's also ask, if we had a property that happened to straddle more than one county line, what would the process look like to go in as a joint application?
Does Colleton and Orangeburg counties, do they have Greenbelt?
Not that I'm aware of.
Think so? No,
I never
Even we're new.
I don't believe so.
wondered.
Yeah, we'll
I
just have to
think-
find out when Berkeley
Yeah,
County,
Berkeley's is
their
brand new.
Greenbelt is in session, and Charleston, because I know either one, they don't work year-round like we do.
Well, I don't think, Eric, I think Davis left. He has another job now, I think. He didn't,
Is that what Charleston?
he didn't leave the county, but he left Greenbelt, I think. He was their Greenbelt chairman for a while.
But he's the
Eric
Parks and
Davis.
Rec director, right?
Did he go into housing?
I thought,
Did he go into housing
I think
with the
so.
county?
I
Okay,
think
that
he
sounds
may
vaguely
have, 'cause
familiar.
I talked to him several times about a track. It was in Charleston County, but I was very much involved in it. It was a 99-acre tract that, mostly marshland. And, we were trying to get it into their, Ranto's Creek canoe, trip. They bought the 35 acres, and just on the other side of 17, there was 99 additional acres that were available on Ranto's Creek. And I don't know where that stands with them now, but he was very much involved then. And when I called back about a follow-up on it, he'd already moved. And I don't know whether they have anybody in
It
his,
says it's head of the newly established Housing and Land Management Program.
okay.
Okay,
Yes.
he did move.
The county website still shows him as Greenbelt director as well, but maybe it hasn't been updated.
All right. This has been very good. Any other comments on discussion related to strategic conservation priorities and opportunities?
Catherine, Joel didn't share any information with you. He had some thoughts about possibly a connection to Brosnan for us before.
No, the Knight property is the big piece of the puzzle there, because that's what's directly off the edge of our stream restoration on our property edge. But no, he hasn't provided anything additional. We've
Well,
been stuck on cows this
Cows,
week.
yeah.
That
Tell them
one,
to move on.
Yes.
the night property, that's been approved, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
good.
that was approved,
Good.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
Well-
They haven't gone yet.
yeah. That's
Later
later
this month.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
June,
19th, I
9th?
want to say?
it was before the second
Oh,
county
you're right, it's
council
before
meeting.
the next council meeting.
Before the next council meeting, yeah. Just to recap a couple of high points. So, Edsel, you're going to get with Joel and with David at Land Trust to talk with Jimmy to keep that conversation moving about his interest in some of those properties, bridging that connection between Brosnan and Audubon.
Does Joel know Jimmy very well?
We've done a good bit of work with Jimmy in the past, so I think he
Okay.
knows him decently well.
Okay.
We're going to continue working on organizing for some education and some outreach opportunities. And we'll explore some specifics like Third Thursday, Farmers Market, and library events. And we will pick back up the Tri-County Greenbelt meeting as a possible thing that we could pursue in the fall. I think those were the high points here. We'll look forward to hearing more about this potential Indian Field Swamp property, if anything materializes there, and love to extend an invitation to them to come to our August Greenbelt meeting. And I think those were all the high points. Are there any public comments? Okay. Hearing none, we will reconvene next month in Somerville on July the 2nd at 5:30 PM. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.